The story begins with a ship sailing across the open sea. Everyone on board is traveling from one island to another in search of unique treasures that had been buried underwater centuries ago. However, the next morning, the crew discovers that one of their members has mysteriously died. The ship's leader, Cagley, gathers everyone together and asks another crew member, Thomas, to say a prayer for the deceased. Thomas comes from a family of priests, so he knows the proper prayers to honor the dead. Deeply saddened because the man was someone close to him, Thomas still finds the strength to pray, asking God to grant peace to his friend's soul. After finishing the prayer, the crew respectfully commits the body to the sea since they are still far from reaching land. Cagley trusts Thomas more than anyone else on the ship because, besides taking care of the animals on board, Thomas always gives him wise advice that helps him become a better person. It is also revealed that Thomas is a talented artist who can create incredibly detailed sketches. At the moment, he is drawing a portrait of a crew member named Winaku, leaving Cagley genuinely impressed by his artistic skills. While watching the sketch, Cagley explains that Winaku belongs to a royal bloodline and is actually the son of a king, although no one on the ship knows exactly which kingdom he comes from because Winaku never talks openly about his past. Soon, the crew realizes that their ship has several holes in its hull and is taking on water, forcing them to head toward the nearest shore to gather wood and repair it. Cagley puts Winaku in charge of navigation, and despite having no compass, Winaku confidently changes course and leads the ship directly to land, something Thomas finds surprisingly suspicious. Once they arrive, everyone heads ashore, while Thomas makes a dramatic entrance by riding his white horse through the shallow water. Cagley and the crew spread out across the island to collect timber for the repairs. Meanwhile, Thomas and Winaku sit together, and Thomas notices a sharp tooth hanging around Winaku's neck. Winaku explains that it is a treasured family heirloom passed down through generations. Thomas then asks about the scar on his face, but Winaku only says that it is a reminder of his father and his family's legacy, something he could never forget. As the crew continues searching the island, Thomas suddenly encounters a frightened woman named Ranjami. Holding a sharp knife, she cautiously approaches him, but Thomas calmly assures her that he has no weapon and means her no harm. Once she realizes he is telling the truth, she relaxes and gently pets his horse. Moments later, several tribal warriors arrive, including Ranjami's husband, who immediately prepares to attack Thomas. Before the situation turns violent, Cagley and the rest of the crew rush in and peacefully explain that they have come only to repair their ship and have no intention of hurting anyone. Cagley asks for permission to take some wood, but Ranjami's husband demands Thomas's horse in exchange. Since giving up the horse is not an option, the crew offers him an axe instead. Satisfied with the trade, he accepts the deal and leaves with the other tribesmen. With plenty of wood finally collected, the crew returns to the ship and begins repairing it, though the work will still take some time before the vessel is ready to sail again. Thomas tells Cagley that they should stay on the island a little longer and enjoy its beautiful surroundings. Cagley agrees, but Thomas notices that Winaku is nowhere to be found and assumes he has gone to gather food. Riding his white horse, Thomas explores the island, amazed by its untouched natural beauty. Eventually, he gets tired, lies down near the shore, and peacefully falls asleep, unaware that this paradise hides a terrifying secret. Suddenly, a woman's desperate scream wakes him up. He immediately rushes toward the sound and discovers two rival tribes locked in a brutal battle. Armed with deadly weapons, the warriors are slaughtering each other without mercy, turning the area into a horrifying bloodbath. During the chaos, it is revealed that Winaku is actually a member of one of the island's most powerful tribes, not the prince of a royal kingdom as everyone believed. His tribe has been conquering neighboring territories one by one, killing anyone who stands in their way. Moments later, the tribe's leader, Akata, arrives with his warriors. They quickly overpower the opposing tribe, killing most of them and capturing Ranjami, her husband, and the remaining survivors. When Thomas reaches the battlefield, he desperately tries to stop the violence. At Akata's command, the warriors lower their weapons, and Akata asks Thomas what he wants. Seeing that only Ranjami and her husband are still alive, Thomas begs Akata to spare them. By then, Cagley also arrives and asks Akata to let Thomas go, revealing that the two already know each other. Akata even thanks Cagley for training his son, Winaku. It turns out Akata had intentionally sent Winaku to live among outsiders so he could learn their customs, study their weapons, and understand how they lived. In return, Cagley asks Akata to spare Thomas, but Thomas refuses to leave unless Ranjami and her husband are also set free. Furious, Akata asks what Thomas is willing to offer in exchange for their lives. Without hesitation, Thomas sacrifices his most treasured companion, his white horse, to save them. But Akata cruelly declares that the horse is only worth one life, forcing Thomas to choose between Ranjami and her husband. Torn by the impossible decision, Thomas finally chooses to save Ranjami. Akata immediately orders his men to execute her husband, leaving Ranjami devastated as she breaks down in tears and refuses to leave his body. Akata angrily warns everyone to leave his territory or they will all be killed. Thomas, Kagli, and the crew take the heartbroken Ranjami aboard their repaired ship and set sail. Deeply traumatized by her husband's death, Ranjami withdraws into silence, but Thomas treats her with kindness, bringing her food and assuring her that she can stay on the ship as long as she wants without any restrictions. After several days of sailing, they finally arrive at a busy trading port where Thomas and the crew regularly conduct business. Thomas meets with a wealthy merchant responsible for overseeing many rare treasures, and the two have a private conversation that remains undisclosed. Later, Thomas checks on Ranjami, who is quietly praying for her late husband. After asking her to get some rest, he visits a priest friend at the local church, who invites him to dinner. Thomas accepts the invitation, but when he returns to his room, he discovers that Ranjami has developed a high fever. Upon examining her, he finds a serious wound on her back and immediately begins treating her with genuine compassion, caring for her like family. Despite the fact that she belongs to a tribal community, Thomas shows no prejudice or hatred and simply wants to help her recover. After tending to her injuries, he heads to the dinner gathering, where influential merchants and city governors are present. While introducing himself, Thomas warns them of a growing danger. He explains that the city's borders will continue shrinking because a ruthless tribe has been invading neighboring territories and claiming them by force. That tribe is led by none other than Akata, the same ruthless warrior Thomas had already encountered on the island. Everyone is stunned after hearing Thomas's warning. He explains that Akata's tribe kills anyone who stands against them, and if nothing is done, their city could soon face the same fate. The governors and investors become deeply concerned. During the meeting, Thomas asks a local doctor to treat a patient under his care whose condition is getting worse. However, the doctor refuses, saying that medical supplies are already running low and the remaining medicine must be reserved for the city's own people, not someone from a tribal community. Disappointed, Thomas leaves the dinner and is approached by a woman named Beth. She tells him about a skilled healer named Miss Harty, who might be able to save his patient. Thanking Beth, Thomas immediately goes to meet her. But the moment Miss Harty hears that the patient is a tribal woman named Ranjami, she refuses to help. Thomas argues that Ranjami is still a human being, regardless of where she comes from, but his words fail to change her mind. Heartbroken, he returns home, only to discover that Miss Harty has unexpectedly followed him after reconsidering her decision. She begins treating Ranjami with all the knowledge and traditional healing techniques she possesses. Along with carefully tending to her wounds, she prepares a special herbal soup that could speed up her recovery. She even recites ancient prayers that have been passed down through her family for generations. Surprisingly, the treatment seems to work, and Ranjami's condition begins improving rapidly. The following morning, the town's alarm bell suddenly rings, signaling that strangers have entered their territory. Thomas, Miss Harty, and the others rush outside, expecting an attack, only to discover that a large tribal group has arrived. At first, everyone believes they are enemies, but it soon becomes clear that they are actually warriors sent by Ranjami's father to bring her home. As the tribal chief calls for his daughter, Ranjami angrily refuses to leave, declaring that she will not return until the men responsible for murdering her husband are punished. Wanting to ease his daughter's pain, her father captures several warriors from a rival tribe and falsely claims that they are the killers. One by one, he executes them in front of Ranjami, even though the real murderer is someone else. His only goal is to convince her to return home. Before she can make a decision, Miss Harty explains that Ranjami had been critically ill and that both she and Thomas worked tirelessly to save her life. She also says that Ranjami is still recovering and has learned many valuable things while living among them, things she could never have experienced back in her village. Hearing this, Ranjami's father is impressed and realizes that his daughter is in good hands. He agrees to let her stay until she fully recovers and continue learning from the people there. To ensure her safety, he assigns one of his trusted warriors, Baru, to remain by her side. After saying an emotional goodbye to his daughter, Ranjami's father leaves with the rest of his tribe. With Baru now by her side, Ranjami finally has someone she can trust, though she still struggles with fear after everything she has endured. The next day, they officially begin living in the city. Meanwhile, Thomas continues his mission of teaching people about Jesus, gathering them inside the church to share stories of faith and his beliefs. Standing quietly in the back are Ranjami and Baru, listening carefully, but they can barely understand any of it since they have spent their entire lives without following any organized religion. After the service ends, everyone thanks Thomas for his inspiring words. He then takes Ranjami and Baru to the city's registration office so they can receive legal permission to stay. The official asks where they came from, and Thomas simply replies that they are travelers from another island. Although the man is suspicious, he eventually approves their residency. Later, Ranjami joins Miss Harti in the forest to gather vegetables. As Miss Harti sings while they work, she starts dancing, and Ranjami happily follows along, matching every step with excitement. Back at the church, another story begins to unfold as Baru and Beth exchange meaningful glances, revealing that they have quietly fallen for each other. Unfortunately, Beth's father notices their growing bond and strongly disapproves. He refuses to accept the idea of his daughter having a relationship with someone from a tribal community and becomes increasingly determined to keep them apart. While walking through the city with Thomas, Ranjami notices a grand dance celebration where elegantly dressed British settlers gather for a formal ball. Fascinated by what she sees, she tells Thomas and Miss Harti that she wants to learn how to dance. Thomas hesitates at first, but Miss Harti understands how much it means to her. Secretly, she dresses Ranjami in beautiful clothes, completely transforming her appearance. She looks stunning, and that night Thomas proudly invites her to the dance, introducing her to everyone. However, not everyone welcomes her. Many of the British guests are uncomfortable seeing someone from a tribal community among them because they look down on tribal people as inferior. Ignoring their prejudice, Thomas treats Ranjami like his own daughter and shares a graceful dance with her, making her feel accepted for the first time. At the same time, Baru and Beth continue meeting in secret, and their relationship grows even stronger. But their happiness is short-lived. Beth's father discovers their romance, and already filled with hatred toward the tribal people, he secretly orders his men to kill Baru. When Thomas enters the room, he is horrified to find Baru lying dead. The entire community is left in shock. Thomas confronts Beth's father, demanding to know who is responsible, but no one admits the truth, and everyone begins blaming one another. Ranjami is devastated when she learns that Baru has been murdered. Overcome with grief, she cannot stop crying and wonders how she will ever face her father again. The people carefully prepare Baru's body so it can be returned to his tribe, and Thomas decides that he will personally deliver it. A few hours later, the killer is finally identified. Furious citizens attack him before the authorities take him into custody. They believe that no matter where Baru came from, he was still an innocent human being whose life deserved justice. Even so, Thomas remains worried about how he will explain Baru's death to his tribe. Before they leave, Beth quietly comes to see Baru's body one last time. Soon afterward, Thomas loads Baru's body onto his horse and begins the long journey back to the tribal lands, accompanied by Miss Harti and Ranjami. As night falls, the group stops to rest along the way. While sitting around the camp, Thomas sketches a portrait of Ranjami and asks Miss Harti about her past. She reveals that her husband was killed many years ago during a war, and since then she has lived among the British settlers, dedicating her life to helping others. Miss Harti also has a deep curiosity about learning more about different tribal cultures. After traveling for several days, the group finally reaches Baru's village. When the tribe learns of Baru's death, they begin making strange ceremonial sounds. Thomas initially mistakes it for anger, but he soon realizes it is actually a traditional ritual to honor the dead and pray for their peaceful journey into the afterlife. Expecting a furious reaction, Thomas is surprised by how calmly the tribe accepts the news. They simply tell him that time will eventually heal their pain and invite him to stay in the village for a few days. From the very next morning, Thomas carefully observes the tribe's daily life. He sketches their routines, records their customs, and documents everything he sees so he can better understand their culture. Suddenly, the sound of gunfire echoes through the village. Alarmed, Thomas rushes toward it but accidentally leaves his sketchbook behind. One of the villagers finds it and hands it to the tribal chief, who quietly studies Thomas's detailed drawings. When Thomas reaches the source of the noise, he discovers that the villagers are practicing with firearms. Even Ranjami is among them, teaching others how to use the weapons. Realizing that the tribe has begun arming itself for protection, Thomas becomes deeply worried, knowing it could eventually lead to a full-scale war. Later, the tribal chief asks Thomas about one of the sketches in his notebook, which shows many people dying. Thomas explains that before arriving on the island, he kept having disturbing dreams in which countless tribal people were being killed. He believes those dreams are a warning that a great danger is approaching their tribe. Both Thomas and the chief understand that the threat is Akata and his expanding army. Determined to defend his people, the chief decides to begin preparing his warriors for battle. That evening, Thomas and Miss Harti grow even closer as they share a quiet and heartfelt moment together. The following day, Thomas watches the chief training his people in combat techniques so they will be ready if war breaks out. As the days pass, he also notices that the chief is secretly purchasing large numbers of firearms from Cagli's men, confirming that preparations for a confrontation with Akata are already underway. Thomas immediately tries to convince the chief to abandon the idea of war, warning that countless innocent lives will be lost. However, the chief sees no other way to protect his tribe and believes that preparing for battle is their only chance of survival. Thomas finally tells the tribal chief that the only way to avoid bloodshed is to make peace with Akata. He suggests giving Akata the land he wants and allowing the remaining families to live safely on what is left. However, the chief replies that Thomas should be the one to negotiate. If Akata agrees to peace, he promises to lay down his weapons as well. The responsibility now falls entirely on Thomas. Before meeting Akata, Thomas visits his old friend Cagli and pleads with him to stop selling firearms to the tribes, warning that those same weapons will eventually be turned against them. But Cagli only cares about making money and ignores the warning completely. Realizing he cannot change Cagli's mind, Thomas sails to Akata's territory. Ranjami joins him on the journey and gives him the hide of a sacred animal from her tribe, suggesting he present it as a gift to earn Akata's respect. Thomas accepts the gift and offers it to Akata, asking him to end the conflict and make peace, saying that unity would bring blessings to everyone. Akata rejects the proposal without hesitation. He declares that he will continue expanding his territory and destroy anyone who stands in his way. The very next day, Akata launches his attack. He and his army arrive in force, and his first victim is Cagli, whom he kills after becoming furious over the high prices charged for the weapons. Chaos erupts as Akata's warriors slaughter everyone in their path. One attacker rushes toward Thomas, but Ranjami arrives just in time and shoots him dead. It is revealed that this warrior was the same man who murdered her husband, finally giving her the revenge she had long sought. Thomas and Ranjami immediately ride back to warn the tribe. Thomas urges everyone to escape by boarding his ship and sailing away before Akata's army arrives, but the tribal chief refuses. He declares that they will never abandon their homeland, even if they are outnumbered. Seeing the chief's determination and watching Miss Harty prepare to fight alongside the warriors, Thomas realizes there is no choice left but to stand and fight with them. Within hours, Akata's massive army storms the village. Using cannons captured from Cagli's ship, they bombard the settlement as a fierce battle breaks out. The two tribes clash in a brutal fight, and at first Akata's larger force appears unstoppable. During the battle, Miss Harty is seriously wounded. Thomas desperately tries to save her and blames himself for everything that has happened. Filled with grief and anger, he joins the fight himself. Despite being heavily outnumbered, the tribe refuses to surrender and battles with incredible courage until their very last breath, gradually wearing down Akata's forces. In the end, Akata's army is wiped out, leaving only Akata alive. After accepting defeat, he is executed by the rival tribal chief, ending the war once and for all. Akata's son is spared and welcomed into the victorious tribe, helping unite both sides. The tribes eventually make peace with the British settlers, leading to a brighter future through trade. With lasting peace finally restored, the story comes to an end.